But this was just fun. And the point is, once we start to use interval scale of preferences, now we can use the notion of expected utility, and therefore we can calculate something like this, which makes life a little, just a little more fun. Okay. Now let's discuss some games. Matrix for game. Player 1, player 2. Let's call this row up strategy, this row down strategy, this column left strategy, this column right strategy. Let me arbitrarily come up with a two-person zero-sum game. And let's simply go back to what we discussed last week, main ingredients of the input and see if they are all there. Players, strategies, up, down, left, and right. Outcomes, there are 4 potential outcomes. Preferences, obviously, you would rather have, say, outcomes that gives you greater numbers. Okay? That's your preference. And payoffs are obviously these numbers. Now, when you play the game, as an individual, what do you decide? Do you decide players? Do you decide outcomes? Or do you decide preferences? Okay. Like Ida just said, you decide strategies. So, if you're player 1, all you can do is to decide or to choose between up and down. That's it. If you're player 2, then all you decide is to choose between left and right. Occasionally, I've run into some students who think that players actually decide outcomes. Players never decide outcomes. Players decide their own choice of strategies, and as a result of everybody choosing his or her own strategy, we get to a certain outcome. Okay? So players 1 and 2 does not say, okay, we'll say this is the outcome. It doesn't happen there. Okay? And player 1 is often called role player, because player 1 chooses between the 2 roles of going down. And player 2 is often called column player because she chooses between the two columns. So if player 1 chooses up strategy and player 2 chooses right strategy, then as a result, the outcome of the game becomes this cell. And also as a result, player 1's payoff becomes 3, and player 2's payoff becomes negative. You're going to have to learn lots of new concepts in the initial weeks of this semester. Because we are starting from nothing, right? So we are going to have to learn new concepts. We did that last week, next week, and this week, and probably up until next week. We need to lay the ground with our concepts and conceptual tools before we will be actually able to apply what we learn to the real world situations, and before we will be able to solve for the solutions. Today, another new concept that we will be learning is called dominant strategy. The notion of domination. I gotta write all this down. So once I write this down this time around, starting next year, I don't need to do that because next year I will have video. So this is one-time deal. dominant strategy. The notion of domination. One strategy of a player dominates another. It leads to outcomes lowers, and for at least one strategy choice of the other players. The reason I have S in here is that this notion also applies to larger games, that is, games that have more than 2 players, 3 players, 4 players, or million players, or better outcome. One strategy of a player dominates another. So clearly, this one indicates that the dominance relationship is between the strategies of a single player and not with some other player's strategy. dominance relationship이라는 건 내가 가진 스트래티지 중에서 뭐가 좋으냐를 선택할 때 사용하는 개념입니다. 남의 스트래티지하고 상관이 없어요. Yeah, let's compare up and down. So we compare the strategies of a single player. Hypothetically, if 2 choices left, which one is better strategy for me? Up, because I get 4 instead of 0. If 2 choices right, which one is better strategy for me? Up again, because 3 is better than -2. So no matter what your opponent chooses, up strategy is always better than down strategy. When that is the case, we say up strategy dominates down strategy for player 1. Why don't you do the same for player 2's strategies? There are dominance relationship, domination. Another way to ask is there a dominant strategy for player 2? The right column. The right column. Right column? Is that right? Okay. If my opponent, this is me now, if my opponent chooses up, I am better off by choosing, this is -4. So by choosing right, -3 is greater than -4. If my opponent chooses down, then I'm better off by choosing right. 2 is better than 0. So yes, all dominates at the play. Let's look at another game. I suggest that you pay attention to the wording of this definition. Okay? Wording of this definition, and try to figure out if there's any dominance relationship between up and down and left and right. You tell me. What?
I would say player one has a dominant strategy. It would still be up.
Up?
Because he has at least one strategy choice better, which is to have 4 instead of 0.
So this is what you are trying to say, right?
Yeah, exactly. And if he and spin it up, when he chooses 1, he gets 1 also down, but it's also no worse. So it's a dominant strategy according to the definition.
Okay. How about between left and right? Anyone? Say it again.
I would say there's no dominant strategy here because if he goes for a left play that's better than another, but which is -1, but on the if he just check, he also gets -1 instead of 0, and this is worse. And on the contrary, it's the same thing. If he chooses the contrary, he has one outcome that's better, but another outcome that's worse. So he has no dominant strategy according to the definition.
Okay. Now, between left and right, if my opponent chooses up, I'm better off by choosing right. Right? If my opponent chooses down, I'm better off by choosing. You don't choose payoff. By choosing left, right. So sometimes right is better, sometimes left is better. Therefore, there is no dominance relationship between left and right, as he said. Now, dominance relationship between up and down. The definition states one strategy of dominates another if it leads to outcome no worse. It doesn't say always better. It says no worse. Okay? And in this case, 1 and 1, no worse applies here, right? They are the same. No worse, and at least one strategy choice of the other players are better, which happens here, 4 and 0. So as he said, up and down in this game satisfies this definition. And yes, up still dominates down. Now, to distinguish these two different situations, in this case, up strategy was always better no matter what your opponent does, right? It is not the case in this case. So to distinguish between the two different situations, we say, in this case, let's do this one. Up, dominates dog. No matter what, up is better. And up strictly dominates dog. And in this case, sometimes they give same payoff, sometimes, some other times, one of them gives clearly greater payoff. And we say this kind of relationship of which two dominates down. So from this point on, I may use the term weak domination and strict domination. And when I do that, what I mean is this difference. I'd like to take a break, but before I go away, I will give you something that you can work on while I take a break. So the break only applies to me. This is a 3x3 game, meaning each player now has 3 strategies available. Remember, the dominance relationship is between a pair of strategies of individual players. What that means is to figure out if there is a dominance relationship, you must compare up and middle, and then you must compare up and down, and then middle and down. So there are 3 processes. For player 2, you must compare left hand, this is center, and center and right, and left and right. Okay? And we'll take a 10-minute break. You guys take 5-minute bathroom break, and then you have 5 minutes to solve this question. Okay? I'll come back and ask you in 10 minutes. So again, do I need to call some names out again? So you compare, up and middle and down, up and down. Did you get anything? 없어? 없음, nothing. Okay. And between left, center, right, left, right.
Nothing again.
Nothing again. Okay. If you all see that, then obviously no dominance relationship between any pair of strategies in this game. So what this shows you is that not all the games in the world have dominance relationships or dominance strategies. what happens if we change this? I just flip the numbers. Does anything changes? You need to check just ENN, PNU, and LNC, LNO.
LNC player 2 has a dominant
Be more specific.
C dominates L.
C dominates L. Is that true? Anything else? So if an opponent chooses up, which is say center and left, I'm better off by choosing center. Middle, I'm better off by choosing center. And now down. I'm better off by choosing center. And is this a weak domination or strict domination? Okay.
첫 번째 플레이어가 이유를 선택하면 그 사람이 3을 넣습니다. 나이스
못 알아듣지 다시.
첫 번째 플레이어가 이유를 선택하는 전략을 택했을 때 플레이어 2 입장에서는 마이너스 0, 3중에 3이 더 좋은
플레이 2가 어떻게 6을 선택해요?
아니 저기 맨 밑줄 라이트
라이트.
거기서 C를 선택하는 게 아니라
라이트 선택을 하면
그러니까 플레이어 1이 U를 선택한다고 가정했을 때 플레이어 2를 선택하잖아요. 근데 플레이어 2가 마이너스 5, 0, 3 중에서 하나를 택하는 건데 3이 더 좋으니까 저기서 0이 아니라 3을 택하는
제가 누누이 얘기하지만 바이낸스 릴레이션십은 그 사이의 관계다. 스트레티지 두 개 사이의 관계. 지금 우리 C하고 L만 비교하고 있는 거예요. I
한꺼번에 3개를 결합하면
반응이 좋아요. C is better than left, no matter what player 1 chooses, which means C strictly dominates left. On the other hand, if you compare right and left, right is better, left is better, so there is no dominance relation, still no dominance relationship between left and right. Okay, we'll learn another very important concept today. I don't agree. If you understand this concept, you can say that you understand about 1/2 of game theory. So that doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be able to write an academic article about game theory, but at least you understand some of the models, basic models that have been created by early game theorists. And without knowing this concept, you cannot solve game theory So we will discuss just this, and instead of throwing more concepts at you, I'm gonna let's go a little early today. And the concept is obviously